This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2011 Journey, directed by Adam Wingard and written by Simon Barrett. Probably noticed I don't typically mention the writer. That's because oftentimes I feel the writer is overshadowed by whomever is directing. Though I've seen other films written by Simon Barrett, and I think he's a really interesting writer, so I thought I'd throw him in the mix as well. You're Next is on the face of it a home invasion thriller revolving around a family named the Davisons, and they're having a dinner for reasons. I want to say it's Thanksgiving, but I don't recall the film mentioning why they're coming together, though they are. And with the children, they bring their fiancés, boyfriends, girlfriends, and so on and so forth. While they're having this dinner, their home is assaulted by three masked men who seemingly have the singular intention of killing them all. These men are fairly ruthless and quite efficient at what they do, and in fact, they feel almost as if they're military. It's also worth mentioning that these three men wear a mask of a tiger, a lamb, and a fox, which isn't interesting hearing me say it, but to actually see these masks, they're really creepy. And the thing about masks in general is that an obvious use is to hide the identity of the person who wears it. But another side effect of that is that they remove the humanity from the person, in the sense that through a person's face you can tell what they're feeling, their eyes, their mouth, their brow, and so forth. Put a mask on a person and that's all gone. You know it's a person because what else could it be? But beyond that, you have no idea what that person is actually thinking or what their intentions are. And so the masks that these three men wear are particularly effective, so that makes them even more threatening. Though the movie isn't quite as simple as that, in that the movie doesn't start with the home invaders invading the home of the Davison family. Instead, it starts with the home invaders invading the home of Erik Larson, played by the director Larry Fessenden. They kill him and scrawl on the walls, "You're next." So when the violence moves to the Davison home, I think a few hours later maybe, it feels very random. As if you have three itinerant serial killers who just happen to stumble upon this family after killing this other person. Though that's only the impression. Once again, there's more going on here than meets the eye. If the police found Erik Larson's body as well as the remains of the Davisons, more than likely they would assume, once again, that this is a serial killer, serial killers, and there's nothing more to it. They would investigate, of course, but eventually they would move on, not knowing how this is so much more than that. When we meet the Davison family, we come to learn that they put the D in dysfunctional. The Davison children really don't like each other for various somewhat petty reasons. And these animosities boils to the surface on occasion during these family dinners. And this particular dinner is no different, for two of the brothers start to go at each other over some event. This family is clearly not at all comfortable with each other, and they, on the whole, do not like each other, which makes the events that follow make a little more sense. The two brothers that I mentioned are named Crispin, played by A.J. Bowen, and Drake, played by Joe Swanberg, and they once again hate each other so much. Though it should be mentioned that that hatred, I think, is not unusual for brothers. And when you have large families, you're always going to have people that have that kind of dislike for each other. One of the other children, named Felix, played by Nicholas Tucci, is quiet during the dinner. He doesn't bring attention to himself like Crispin and Drake are doing. As the movie goes on, as I mentioned earlier, it becomes fairly obvious that there's more than a home invasion going on here. Though what none of the antagonists took into account was Kelly, played by Margaret Laney, who grew up on a survivalist compound, which apparently means that she has a very particular set of skills, which she is adept at using. And she goes about defending herself and other members of the family against these three killers in ways that are brutal and oftentimes very gory. Though this is one of the weaknesses of You're Next, namely the explanation for why Kelly acts as she acts is extremely unsatisfying, and it's less an explanation than a way to placate, which is to say, you don't want to talk about something, so you just throw something out there to get people to shut up. Though, the thing is, they're placating not only the characters in the movie, but the audience. And that's a pity, because Kelly is such an important character in this movie. To have her have no real story beyond that line is, I think, a bit of a misstep. As I was saying, when Kelly is threatened, it's like a switch is hit, and she just immediately goes into survival mode, becoming extremely lethal with the most common items. And there's nothing wrong with that on the face of it. And in fact, it's not at all uncommon for these type of movies. Though the problem is, once again, the movie never tells us, beyond a throwaway line, why Kelly is the way she is. And as far as the explanation goes, having grown up on a survivalist compound doesn't really make any sense. It's not unlike saying, if one happened to live on a military base, that they're Delta Force. The things aren't the same at all. So, once again, the explanation of why she is as intense as she is makes no sense. And it's worth mentioning, this is a prime example why diversity in front of and behind the camera is so important. It's not a bad thing to have women involved with writing roles for women. And obviously I'm not saying that that should exclusively be the case. Though what I am saying is that men writing the roles for women oftentimes don't work very well. It doesn't work well in this movie, and there are some directors who do it particularly well though, like Neil Marshall and The Descent, and all the leads are women. It works great, and it doesn't feel in any way patronizing or illogical. Kelly, written by Simon Barrett and directed by Adam Wingard, is not a very good character. She's interesting, but she's a tabula rasa almost. And because of that, what she does comes off very brutal and mean-spirited, which is strange because she is clearly the antagonist, but she comes off almost monstrous. Now keep in mind something. Once again, there are people trying to kill her, and she's defending herself against them. But she comes off, by my reckoning at any rate, looking worse than the killers, which is a real strange place to be when you think about it. And if Kelly were replaced with, I don't know, Liam Neeson's character, or Rambo, or a Terminator, the movie would not miss a beat. Not really, because she is so undefined, and the script seemingly deliberately gives her no background, so we don't understand beyond a throwaway phrase why she does anything that she does. So when the movie ended, what I thought it needed was some glimpse of Kelly's life before she met Crispian. Something that would show us even a little glimpse of how she came to be who she is. Because she is given such short shrift in this movie, and she is such a pivotal character in the movie, that to have her treated this way just kind of disappoints. And it doesn't make the movie bad by any stretch. It does make it a little unsatisfying though. And going back to the point about Kelly, it's so interesting how she appears the villain. She's clearly not, by the way, and nor do you think she is. But just the way she acts and the lack of information you have about her makes her appear villainous in ways that don't affect either the killers or some of the terrible members of the family. Because at least with them, you understand why they're doing what they're doing. They're either greedy, they just are mean-spirited, they're just bastards, but you know those people. And those people are awful, to be sure, but they're familiar. You get them. Kelly, you never get. Beyond defending her life, nothing she does really makes sense. You're Next is quite watchable and even enjoyable at points, but it doesn't say anything. It could have even had a commentary on rich versus poor. The Davison family is quite well off, apparently, but the movie just doesn't seem to care about that, and that's fine. But don't set up a character like Kelly, give us nothing to fill that character out, and then go on with the movie. It is a very unsatisfying movie, though at the end, quite watchable. So what do you think? This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. Do you agree, disagree? Let me know down below. And as usual, consider a like or a follow. Peace.